My fiancée gave me an ultimatum. Either send my kids off to boarding school or the wedding was off. So, I called the whole thing off and watched her perfect little dream life unravel. I'm 41, raising two amazing kids, 9 and 11, on my own. Their mom passed away a few years back, and since then, it's just been the three of us against the world. Things haven't always been smooth sailing, but all in all, I think we've held it together pretty damn well. My kids are awesome, thoughtful, sharp, and tougher than most adults I know. Honestly, they're the reason I get up and keep pushing forward every day. Around a year and a half into our relationship, I met someone new. Let's call her Lena. She was 34 when we met through some mutual friends at a backyard barbecue. Right away, she seemed like everything I didn't realize I'd been missing. Lively, charismatic, and the kind of person who lit up a room. We clicked instantly, and before long, we were a couple. One thing I appreciated early on was how Lena made an effort to connect with my kids. She'd take them for ice cream or hang out with them at the park, always trying to build some kind of bond. My kids were respectful around her, but I could sense they were keeping a bit of distance. Can't really blame them, though. After all they've been through, it made sense they'd be cautious about letting someone new into their lives. These things take time, right? And in those early days, things felt pretty great. Lena seemed to genuinely accept that my kids were my top priority, that we came as a unit. She'd say how much she admired the way I parented, how she wanted to be part of what we had going. It felt good to have someone who appeared to get it. Our relationship gradually got more serious. We were spending more nights together, and she even started staying over once in a while. My kids didn't complain or protest. They weren't jumping up and down with excitement, but they didn't resist either. I thought we were doing okay adjusting to the idea of becoming a blended family. But looking back, there were a few small things I probably should have paid more attention to. Lena began commenting on my house, subtle stuff at first. She'd say things like, "It's got charm, but maybe it could use some modern updates," or "The kids' rooms are sweet, but wouldn't it be fun to redecorate?" At the time, I chalked it up to her wanting to make the space feel more like home for herself. I didn't think much of it. Then she started imagining our future together, talking about how we could travel the world, build a life, maybe even have a child of our own one day. I didn't mind any of that, but I was always upfront. My children come first. She'd nod and smile whenever I said that, but now that I'm looking back, I'm not so sure she really heard me. And then there was her brother, Travis. Lena would bring him up every so often, but never in a flattering light. She said he was in a rough spot, lost his job, couldn't seem to get it together, and was crashing at their parents' place. She talked about him like he was hopeless, yet somehow entitled to be saved by others. At first, I didn't read too much into it. We've all got relatives who need a hand from time to time. I figured it wasn't my place to judge. But as time went on, I started seeing that Travis was more of a wreck than I'd realized. He couldn't hold down a job, kept making reckless decisions, and had no real drive to improve his situation. Still, it didn't feel like something that should derail our relationship. Lena and I were getting pretty close, and I'd started thinking about what life together might look like. After flying solo for so long, it felt good to imagine sharing life with someone again. Around our one-year mark, I seriously started thinking about proposing. Lena wasn't exactly subtle. She'd point out rings she liked and casually mention wedding venues and so on. I wasn't oblivious. Truth is, I liked the idea. My kids were thriving in school, our routines were solid, and I finally felt ready to take that next big step. I knew blending our lives wouldn't be a walk in the park, but I truly believed we could make it work. So I put together a low-key proposal, something heartfelt at the park where we'd had one of our first dates. No over-the-top spectacle, just me being real with her. I was nervous, sure, but also kind of excited. As we walked, I told her how much she meant to me, pulled out the ring, and asked her to marry me. She was thrilled, slipped the ring on right away, and immediately started talking about wedding plans and our future. In that moment, it felt like everything was falling into place. I didn't realize how fast everything would unravel. The first few weeks after the proposal were a blur of excitement. Lena dove into wedding planning like it was a full-time job, color palettes, venue scouting, Pinterest boards galore. Meanwhile, I was just trying to keep up. Between my job, the kids, and all the usual chaos, I let her take the lead with the wedding planning. She seemed happy, and I didn't want to rain on that. But slowly, little things started creeping in that didn't sit right. At first, it was tiny remarks about how the house needed a woman's touch or how she pictured a future that was more polished. I didn't really know what she meant by that, but I shrugged it off. Maybe that was her way of trying to feel more involved, to make the space feel like hers too. At first, it was just little suggestions, nothing direct. She'd say things like, "Wouldn't it feel more open if we cleared out some of the kids' old stuff?" Or, "Maybe we could move a few things to the garage, just to tidy up a bit." Individually, those comments didn't seem like much. But when I started piecing them together, it felt like she was slowly trying to erase pieces of the home the kids and I had built. I didn't push back right away. I figured maybe I was reading too much into it. She was excited about our future, right? Maybe she just wanted to feel like part of it. But then one Saturday, she showed up with a furniture catalog and a full plan to upgrade our living room. I remember thinking, upgrade it to what? Everything was in good shape. The couch was perfectly fine, the coffee table was sturdy, and those beanbags in the corner? Non-negotiable. My kids love them. Lena started going on about wanting the space to feel more grown-up, less chaotic. It took everything in me not to snap. This house wasn't meant to be picture-perfect. It was meant to be a home for me and the kids. The first real confrontation came when she suggested turning the spare room, our little multi-purpose area, into a guest bedroom. She tried to frame it like a compromise, saying the kids could still use it sometimes. But that room? That room was where my kids let their creativity loose. It's where I worked late nights after they went to bed. It was one of the only parts of the house that felt truly ours. I told her flat out, "No, we're not changing that room." She didn't argue, but her face said everything. Then came the passive-aggressive dig, something about us needing to figure out how to make room for everyone down the line. I let that one slide. Around that time, Travis, her brother, started coming up in more conversations. Lena said he was staying with her parents temporarily, and she talked about how hard it was to watch him struggle. I didn't respond much. Honestly, I didn't know what to say. Travis wasn't my problem, and I already had my hands full. Then she asked if he could come over for dinner. She said it would be good for him to meet me and the kids since we were all going to be families soon. I agreed, more out of curiosity than anything else. That dinner was rough. Travis showed up late, reeking of bad choices, and spent most of the night griping about how unfair life was. He barely looked at the kids, who'd actually been excited to meet him, and pretty much only talked to Lena. I tried to keep the conversation going, but it felt like pulling teeth. After he left, Lena lit up, saying how nice it was that we'd all had dinner together. I remember just staring at her, wondering if we'd even been at the same table. I mentioned that Travis seemed to be dealing with a lot, and she got defensive right away, said he just needed someone to give him a real chance. I didn't push it, but the way she jumped to defend him rubbed me the wrong way. Over the next couple of weeks, Travis came up more and more. Lena said her parents were leaning on her to do something, that she felt torn between helping her family and building a life with me. It felt like she was testing the waters for something bigger. And then she dropped it, asked if I'd be okay with Travis moving in for a bit after the wedding. I shut that down immediately. I told her I wasn't comfortable with it. But she kept pressing. She insisted it would only be temporary, that he'd keep to himself. I asked her where he was even supposed to stay, and without blinking, she said the spare room. I reminded her, again, that room belonged to the kids. She waved it off like it didn't matter. We didn't get anywhere with that conversation, but it left a sour taste in my mouth. Around then, I noticed a subtle shift in how she acted with the kids. She started asking more about their school routines and habits, not in a warm, curious way, but with this odd analytical tone. Then she started making comments about how they could use more structure or how a new environment might actually be good for them. That's when my son came up to me and asked what boarding school was. I froze. I asked him where he'd heard about that, and sure enough, he said Lena had brought it up. That moment hit me like a punch to the gut. Every internal alarm I had went off. I confronted Lena about it, and she laughed like it was nothing. Said she was only mentioning that boarding schools offered great programs and opportunities. She tried to play it off as a harmless conversation, but I didn't buy it. I told her straight up, I didn't want her planting those kinds of thoughts in my kids' heads. She got defensive again, claimed she was just trying to be helpful. But by then, I could feel the cracks in our relationship turning into full-on fractures. It was starting to look less like she was trying to join our family and more like she was trying to shape it into something that fit her version of perfect. What scared me wasn't just the changes she wanted, It was how subtly and persistently she pushed for them. I wasn't just trying to blend a family anymore. I was being steamrolled into giving up things that mattered to me. After that tough conversation about boarding school, I told myself it was a misunderstanding, maybe just her awkward way of trying to connect. I really wanted to believe we were still on the same page, building a life together. But as the days went by, I started putting the pieces together, and what I saw wasn't pretty. I didn't truly grasp just how far she was willing to go until one night, when she sat me down and laid it all out. The evening had started off like any other, kids upstairs wrapping up their homework, and I was on the couch trying to unwind after a long day. Then Lena came in, looking dead serious, the kind of look that told me something big was coming, and chances were, I wasn't going to like it. She sat down across from me and said, "We need to talk." I let out a sigh. "All right. What's going on?" She hesitated, which was out of character for her. Normally, Lena didn't beat around the bush when she had something on her mind. "I've been thinking a lot about how things are going to work once we're married," she said carefully. "Okay," I replied, already bracing for impact. "It's about the house," she continued. "The way things are right now just isn't going to work with all of us under one roof." I raised an eyebrow. "What are you talking about? We're doing fine." She gave me that look, like I was completely missing the point. "No, we're not. This house is too cramped. We're going to need to make some real changes." I could feel my patience starting to wear thin. "Lena, the kids have their rooms. I've got the office/craft room. It's not ideal, but it works. What kind of changes are you talking about?" That's when she hit me with it. "I think we should look into boarding school for the kids." I just stared at her, stunned. The words echoed in my head, boarding school. The same thing my kids had asked me about not long ago. "You're serious?" I asked. She nodded without flinching. "I've done some research. There are schools with top-notch programs. They get a world-class education, meet new people, grow more independent. It would be an incredible opportunity for them." I narrowed my eyes. "Is that the real reason you're bringing this up? Because it's starting to feel like this isn't about what's best for the kids, it's about something else." She hesitated again, just for a moment. "All right, fine," she said, her tone sharpening. "If the kids went away to school, it would free up space. Travis could move in and actually have his own room." And there it was, the truth laid bare. I felt heat rush to my face. "So let me get this straight," I said, my voice rising. "You want me to send my kids away so your grown, unemployed, drunk brother can move into their home and get a proper room?" She sighed like I was being unreasonable. "Travis is struggling. He needs a stable environment. This would give him a real shot at turning things around. And it's not just about him, it's about us, our future. We need to think long-term." I was fuming now. "You want to talk about what's best for everyone? How about what's best for my kids? That means staying here, with their routines, their school, their friends, and their dad. Not getting shipped off so your brother can play house." Her expression turned icy. "You're being incredibly narrow-minded," she snapped. "You won't even consider the benefits a place like that could offer them. It's not like I'm trying to hurt them. They don't need a damn boarding school," I said, firm and clear. "They need security. They've already lost their mom. They don't need to lose their home, too, not just so Travis can have a new start." Her face tightened with frustration. "Why are you being so difficult about this?" she said, her voice climbing. "Travis is family. Families help each other." "Travis is your family," I said coldly. "Mine is upstairs right now, doing homework in a house that's supposed to be their safe place. You don't get to waltz in here and decide their lives are disposable just so your brother can get a free ride." That one hit her. I could tell. Her tone flipped from defensive to outright angry. "You're acting like I'm out to harm them," she shot back. "I'm not. I just want to create a life where we all have space to grow. But you're so stuck in your own little world, you can't see what this could mean for all of us." "No, Lena," I said, standing my ground. "This isn't about what's best for all of us. This is about you trying to push my kids out so Travis can move in. That's not happening, not now, not ever." She shot up from the couch, arms crossed and lips tight. "Fine," she said, trying not to blow up, even though it was written all over her face. "If you're not even willing to consider what I'm saying, maybe we need to reconsider the whole relationship." I stood too, locking eyes with her. "What exactly are you trying to say?" She stared at me, calm but cold. "If you can't put my family first for once, then maybe we're not meant to do this. There's no way I'm marrying someone who doesn't respect my family." I just stared at her, totally blindsided. "Respect your family? That's rich. What about respecting my kids, my family?" She didn't even blink. "This is your decision," she said coolly, laying it out like some kind of business deal. You can choose me, or you can choose them. It's your call, and I'm not going to settle for anything less. Then she just turned and walked out, leaving me standing there alone in the room, completely floored. I couldn't wrap my head around what had just happened. Deep down, I'd known something had been off for a while, but this was on a whole new level. For the first time since putting that engagement ring on her finger, I seriously questioned whether I'd made a massive mistake. Things had been building for weeks. Every time Lena brought up Travis, it turned into a tension-filled conversation. But then Travis decided to take things further and showed up unannounced, and I was beyond done. The nerve this guy had was unbelievable, completely shameless. Like he honestly thought he could just insert himself into our lives and everything would be handed to him. It wasn't just bold, it was insulting. He had no idea how to read the room. And this wasn't even the first time he'd randomly shown up. But given everything that had already gone down, I was out of patience. It was a Saturday morning. I was in the kitchen flipping pancakes while the kids were chilling on the couch watching cartoons. Then came a knock, loud and firm. The kind of knock that says, "I'm not leaving until someone answers." Immediately, I got a bad feeling. Just ignore it, I called to the kids, figuring it was a delivery or someone trying to sell a security system. But the knocking kept going. I finally opened the door, and there was Travis, standing there like he had every right in the world to be on my doorstep, wearing that smug little smirk like this was just some friendly drop-in. "Hey, man," he said, giving me a nod. "Thought I'd swing by. You got a minute?" I just blinked, trying to figure out what the hell he was doing there. "Lena didn't tell me you were coming," I said, already feeling the temperature rise. He shrugged like it was no big deal. "Didn't think I needed an invite. She mentioned you guys were still working out the details about me moving in, so I figured I'd stop by, check out the setup." I couldn't believe the audacity. "I think there's been a miscommunication," I said, keeping my voice steady. "We haven't agreed to anything about you moving in." Travis let out a laugh, like I just told the world's funniest joke. "Come on, man. Lena said it's practically a done deal. Just a matter of figuring out how to make it all work." Before I could say a word, he strolled right past me into the house. My youngest looked up from the cartoons, confused. My older one shot me a look that said, "What is going on?" I didn't have an answer. Travis glanced around the living room like he was shopping for real estate. "Nice setup," he muttered, then dropped himself onto the couch and stretched out like he owned the place. I was doing everything I could not to lose it. "Travis, now's not a good time," I said tightly. "You should have called before just showing up." Right then, the front door opened again. Lena walked in, paused when she saw Travis, and then flashed a big fake smile. "Oh, Travis. Didn't think you'd be here this early." "Early?" I said, turning toward her. I didn't even know he was coming at all. She waved a hand dismissively. "I must have forgotten to tell you." "No big deal, right?" I looked over at the kids and gently told them to head upstairs. Once they were out of earshot, I turned back to Lena and Travis. "What's going on here?" I asked, my voice tight with frustration. "Travis just told me he came by to look at the house because you told him he might be moving in." Her smile faltered for a split second, but she quickly tried to smooth things over. "Babe," she said, stepping closer. "I was just trying to help. Travis is going through a lot, and I figured if he saw how it could work, maybe you'd come around. We've already had this talk." I reminded her, keeping my cool as best I could. And I was clear, I'm not okay with it. Travis, still lounging like this was his living room, chimed in. "Relax, dude. I'm not asking for much. Just a bed and a little space. You won't even notice I'm here." I turned to face him, my tone ice cold. "This isn't up to you. And no, you're not moving in." Travis stood up, muttering under his breath, clearly annoyed. All right. No need to get all bent out of shape." He grabbed his jacket and made his way to the door. As soon as it closed behind him, I turned to Lena. "What the hell was that?" She crossed her arms and snapped back. "What do you mean? He's my brother. He needs help. I'm trying to find a way to support him. You're the one making it harder than it needs to be." "I'm the one making this harder?" I said, my voice rising in disbelief. "You've been making decisions behind my back, about my home, my children, my life. Tell me how that's supposed to be okay." Lena folded her arms tightly and shot me a glare. "You're impossible to deal with. Travis is family. Families are supposed to be there for each other. Why can't you see that?" "Because this isn't just about Travis," I fired back. "This is about you trying to edge my kids out of their own home to make space for him. They've already been through enough. I'm not throwing their stability out the window just to make things easier for your brother or for you. Her frustration boiled over. You're so damn stubborn, she snapped. Do you have any idea how difficult this has been for me? I'm trying to create a future with you, but you're so wrapped up in your precious little setup, you can't even see the bigger picture. That precious little setup is my kid's life, I said, my voice cold and clear. I won't apologize for protecting that. And if you can't understand why that matters, maybe you're not ready to be part of this family. The look on her face changed, her jaw tightened, and her eyes went hard. I knew what was coming before she even said it. Fine, she said flatly. If you won't compromise, then maybe we need to rethink this entire relationship. I stood there for a moment, letting the silence stretch between us. Then I took a breath and met her eyes. You're right, I said. We do need to rethink things. And I've already made up my mind. Her expression shifted, surprise, maybe even hurt. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm choosing my kids, I said, steady and firm. They'll always come first. If you can't live with that, then we don't have a future. Period. The silence that followed felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. She just stood there, staring at me like she couldn't believe what I'd just said. But I didn't flinch. So that's it, she asked, her voice trembling. Yeah, I said. That's it. And I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there in the living room, stunned and speechless. Walking away from Lena that day brought on a mix of emotions I wasn't ready for. There was a sense of relief, knowing I'd stood my ground and chosen my kids. But along with it came a deep, heavy sadness. This wasn't just the end of a fight. It was the end of everything we'd been building toward. I knew the breakup had been creeping up for a while. Still, that didn't make it any easier. For the first couple of days after I ended things, Lena barely said a word. She avoided me entirely, only coming by briefly to pick up a few things she'd left at the house. I figured she needed time to process. But then the real storm rolled in. It started with the wedding stuff. One evening, she called me out of the blue, her voice cold and all business. So I take it you've canceled everything? She asked. Yes, I said, keeping it short. No reason to keep anything going. Her response was immediate. Good. Then we need to talk about the money. I frowned. What money? The deposits, she snapped. I already put money down for the caterer, and since you're the one calling things off, I expect to be reimbursed. It's only fair. I paused, fighting back the urge to argue. Lena, I paid for the venue deposit, which was way more than the catering. You really want to get into a tally war? That's not the point, she said sharply. You're the one who pulled the plug. That means you should take responsibility for what this has cost. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. I'm not paying you back. We both put money into this. We both knew there were non-refundable expenses. We both made decisions. She didn't take that well. So that's it. You're just going to leave me out the money I spent. I'm already out thousands, I said, keeping my voice steady. Venue, flowers, invitations, I handled all of that. I'm not shelling out more just because you don't like how things ended. That conversation went nowhere fast. She kept pushing, insisting I was being selfish and unfair, while I stood my ground. Eventually, she hung up on me. But the drama didn't stop there. Over the next few days, my phone blew up with texts, emails, and voicemails from her, each one more aggressive than the last. All about that damn catering bill. At one point, she even threatened to take me to small claims court if I didn't pay her back. But it wasn't really about the money. Lena wasn't content to just end things quietly. She started spinning her own version of the breakup to our mutual friends and anyone else who'd listen. Suddenly, I was the villain, the guy who left her high and dry, who refused to help her struggling brother, who didn't care about family. I started getting calls from people I hadn't heard from in ages, friends, acquaintances, even family of hers I barely knew, asking what was going on and why I was being so heartless. One distant cousin of hers, a guy I'd only met once at a barbecue, even called to lecture me about what it means to support your family. I'm the one making this harder? I said, my voice rising in disbelief. You've been making decisions behind my back about my home, my children, my life. Tell me how that's supposed to be okay. Lena folded her arms tightly and shot me a glare. You're impossible to deal with. Travis is family. Families are supposed to be there for each other. Why can't you see that? Because this isn't just about Travis, I fired back. This is about you trying to edge my kids out of their own home to make space for him. They've already been through enough. I'm not throwing their stability out the window just to make things easier for your brother or for you. Her frustration boiled over. "You're so damn stubborn," she snapped. "Do you have any idea how difficult this has been for me? I'm trying to create a future with you, but you're so wrapped up in your precious little setup, you can't even see the bigger picture." "That precious little setup is my kid's life," I said, my voice cold and clear. "I won't apologize for protecting that. And if you can't understand why that matters, maybe you're not ready to be part of this family." The look on her face changed, her jaw tightened, and her eyes went hard. I knew what was coming before she even said it. "Fine," she said flatly. "If you won't compromise, then maybe we need to rethink this entire relationship." I stood there for a moment, letting the silence stretch between us. Then I took a breath and met her eyes. "You're right," I said. "We do need to rethink things. And I've already made up my mind." Her expression shifted, surprise, maybe even hurt. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I'm choosing my kids," I said, steady and firm. "They'll always come first. If you can't live with that, then we don't have a future. Period." The silence that followed felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. She just stood there, staring at me like she couldn't believe what I just said. But I didn't flinch. "So that's it?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Yeah," I said. "That's it." And I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there in the living room, stunned and speechless. Walking away from Lena that day brought on a mix of emotions I wasn't ready for. There was a sense of relief, knowing I'd stood my ground and chosen my kids. But along with it came a deep, heavy sadness. This wasn't just the end of a fight, it was the end of everything we'd been building toward. I knew the breakup had been creeping up for a while. Still, that didn't make it any easier. For the first couple of days after I ended things, Lena barely said a word. She avoided me entirely, only coming by briefly to pick up a few things she'd left at the house. I figured she needed time to process. But then the real storm rolled in. It started with the wedding stuff. One evening, she called me out of the blue, her voice cold and all business. "So I take it you've canceled everything?" she asked. "Yes," I said, keeping it short. "No reason to keep anything going." Her response was immediate. "Good. Then we need to talk about the money." I frowned. "What money?" "The deposits," she snapped. "I already put money down for the caterer, and since you're the one calling things off, I expect to be reimbursed." "It's only fair." I paused, biting back the urge to argue. "Lena, I paid for the venue deposit, which was way more than the catering. You really want to get into a tally war?" "That's not the point," she said sharply. "You're the one who pulled the plug. That means you should take responsibility for what this has cost." I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "I'm not paying you back. We both put money into this. We both knew there were non-refundable expenses. We both made decisions." She didn't take that well. "So that's it? You're just going to leave me out the money I spent?" "I'm already out thousands," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Venue, flowers, invitations, I handled all of that. I'm not shelling out more just because you don't like how things ended." That conversation went nowhere fast. She kept pushing, insisting I was being selfish and unfair, while I stood my ground. Eventually, she hung up on me. But the drama didn't stop there. Over the next few days, my phone blew up with texts, emails, and voicemails from her, each one more aggressive than the last. All about that damn catering bill. At one point, she even threatened to take me to small claims court if I didn't pay her back. But it wasn't really about the money. Lena wasn't content to just end things quietly. She started spinning her own version of the breakup to our mutual friends and anyone else who'd listen. Suddenly, I was the villain, the guy who left her high and dry, who refused to help her struggling brother, who didn't care about family. I started getting calls from people I hadn't heard from in ages, friends, acquaintances, even family of hers I barely knew, asking what was going on and why I was being so heartless. One distant cousin of hers, a guy I'd only met once at a barbecue, even called to lecture me about what it means to support your family. I wasn't about to take any chances. The very next day, I called a locksmith and had every lock in the house changed, front door, back door, even the garage. For a few days, I was on edge, half expecting Travis to come banging on the door, maybe ready to stir up more drama. But instead, nothing. Radio silence. I didn't understand why until a mutual friend filled me in. Turns out, Travis had crossed a line even Lena hadn't seen coming. During one of his drunk, reckless episodes, he'd managed to get into her bank account and completely drained it. And we're not talking about a couple $100, he cleaned her out for thousands. When I heard it, I wasn't shocked. Honestly, it felt like the most predictable outcome imaginable. Travis had always been a taker, a user. Someone who made mess after mess, expecting other people to mop it up. But this time, even by Travis's low standards, he'd gone too far. And to top it off, after stealing her money, he vanished. Stopped answering texts. Ghosted everyone. Nobody had seen him, and Lena was left holding the bag, broke, scrambling to pay bills, and stuck with the fallout of the debt he left behind. Then, as if things hadn't gotten surreal enough already, she showed up at my place. No heads up. No text. Just stood at my front door one afternoon looking like she hadn't slept in days. Her eyes were puffy, makeup smudged, and she looked like she hadn't eaten in a while either. I opened the door, completely caught off guard. And before I could even get a word out, she started talking. "I need your help," she said, her voice trembling. "Travis took everything. I don't know what to do." I stood there, letting her words hang in the air. And in that moment, all I could think about was everything she'd tried to put me and my kids through. Whatever shred of sympathy I might have had vanished instantly. "Lena," I said, calm but firm, "this isn't my mess to fix. You made your choice. You wanted him to live here. You pushed my kids aside so your brother could have a room. Now you're just facing the results of that decision." Her face changed in a heartbeat, from helpless to furious. "How can you be so cold?" she snapped. "I thought you cared about me." "I did," I told her. "But then you made it crystal clear where your priorities were. You chose your brother's comfort over my children's stability. And I'm not going to step in now and play cleanup crew for the mess he left behind. This is on you." She opened her mouth to argue, but I cut her off. "You need to leave," I said, my tone flat and final. "I'm done." She stood there for a moment, stunned. Then she turned around and walked off without another word. In the weeks that followed, the damage from Travis's betrayal kept unraveling around her. He was still missing in action, and her finances were in ruins. Bit by bit, people started backing away from her. The truth came out about what Travis had done and what she tried to do to me and my kids. The lies she'd told didn't hold up under pressure. Eventually, folks began to see the real picture. And her version of the story? It stopped carrying weight. Looking back now, I don't regret any of the decisions I made. Not ending the relationship. Not pulling the plug on the wedding. And definitely not choosing my kids over Lena and her mess of a family. It was a tough experience, but one that taught me something I'll carry for the rest of my life. The people you invite into your world should bring peace, not chaos. They should lift you up, not tear things apart. And when someone doesn't respect your boundaries or your values, you owe it to yourself and the people you love to shut that door. My kids will always come first. That's never going to change.